Well, ladies and gentlemen, I stand before you tonight as a concerned citizen. I'm concerned with the direction that our great country is headed and the financial burden it is placing on our future generations. That's what has motivated me to be here and to help organize this event and to be here before you this evening. The question is, what brings you here? Is it taxes or is it more? You know, it's interesting. When I asked that question to those that helped organize this event, not one of them was primarily concerned with taxes in and of themselves. You know, we shouldn't be. Taxes are a necessary evil to keep this country going. In fact, in Matthew 22, Christ even commands us to give to Caesar what is Caesar's and to God what is God's. And I'm certain that Rome did not have the most moral of governments at that time, but it was the government bestowed on them by God. So are we saying to stop paying taxes? No, not at all. Would we like them reduced? Yes. But, however, we're saying we need to evaluate what those taxes are being used for, and then to use our rights that were endowed by us by our Creator and guaranteed to us in our Constitution to ensure that those taxes are being used for moral and ethical reasons, and wisely. I want to talk to you about three things tonight. First, financial responsibility, including a balanced budget and reduction of our national debt. Second, a return to the Constitution and our national sovereignty. And third, energy independence. Let's start with the national debt. We're told that it's over $11 million. What does that mean to me and you? It means Trillion, sorry. I don't even know how many students that is. But what that means to you and me, each of us is responsible, every citizen in America, including children, is responsible for $37,000 of that debt. That means every household in America is responsible for $144,000. And when you give the average American wage of $44,000, that's over 3 years of wages, not paying for anything else, but paying directly to our national debt, not including interest either. At least private debt is secured by collateral, our houses, cars, business assets. But what is the government debt secured by? Our national land, national parks, the assets, the businesses that they've given stimulus loans to? I don't know. What is the government going to do when, now that China has demanded their monetization of their $1 trillion investment in our debt? Let me review a history lesson for you. In 1956, the British and French were at war with Egypt over the Suez Canal. They requested the United States to be part of that and to help them. But we declined that because we did not want to become involved in another international war. Plus, Russia was threatening to take the side of Egypt. So we put tremendous pressure as a nation on Britain and France, but to no avail. So what did? We turned to modern financial warfare, and we threatened to sell off the post-war investment that we had in the British pound, which would have totally destroyed the British currency. And what happened then? The British and French pulled out within weeks. Do you think that's what they wanted to do and they thought was in their best country's interest? I don't think so. So what do you think China's going to do? What do you think, what kind of power do you think they have over us and other lenders with trillions of dollars invested in our own national debt? What type of blackmail do you think they can cause us to do? Our present administration has already said they will investigate a new global international currency that would replace the United States dollar as the present standard. What does that do to us? I agree. That weakens our own money in our own pockets, and it reduces the influence that we have as a nation throughout this world, and it puts restrictions on us as a nation. Proverbs 22:7 is clear that the borrower is servant to the lender, and that applies to nations as well as individuals. Is national debt new? No, it's been around since day one, the beginning of our country. But previously it was primarily used to finance wars, and it was primarily owned by Americans. Remember the war bonds? And when we had that debt, it was paid off at every available opportunity. George Washington, in his farewell address, stated we should avoid I quote, "The accumulation of debt, not only by shunning occasions of expense, but by vigorous exertions in time of peace to discharge the debts, which unavoidable wars may have occasioned, not ungenerously throwing upon posterity the burden which we ourselves ought to bear."
That's right.
Yes. Yes.
And we've talked about $11 trillion as our debt, but as already mentioned, that debt in reality is over $56 million, or $1 trillion. I apologize. Is an unfunded liability, including our national debt and the unfunded portion of promised benefits to the Medicare and Social Security systems. This is nearly $500,000 per household in America. And given our wage, take 10% of our wages for over 100 years, and that still does not pay that debt. I seriously wonder if we can pay that debt. And I know that $1.7 trillion that's budgeted as this year's deficit will certainly add more to that. So now we begin to understand the need for a balanced budget. What is unbelievable is that it took a stimulus package to bring us here today. This has been going on for years. Can you believe that it's only once in the last 50 years, when you exclude Social Security, that we've only had one balanced budget in the last 50 years? It's a shame that it took a stimulus package to get here, when it's been a lifetime getting there. We must, as a nation, closely evaluate what is discretionary and non-discretionary governmental spending. We must only choose to implement those issues we can fund. You and I must do this in our own personal lives. It is only reasonable to expect our government to do the same. For example, we must decide if we want to spend money to further our children's education, or if we rather want to take that same money and use it to fund international forced abortion. Or perhaps we want to use our resources to provide entitlements to millions of illegal aliens. If so, we must hold our government accountable and ensure they reasonably identify how these costs will be met, and not just pass them on to our children. If not, we must also let them know and ensure they do not burden us with something else that we cannot financially support. As my wife said, we must also reevaluate our position on health care. Currently, the federal government pays for a third of the nation's medical bills, and they want to take on more.